Hello, everyone, and thank you for attending our fourth Industrial Initiative webinar. I think we'll just wait about 2 more minutes for people to log on and then get started. Okay, so I think we're going to go ahead and get started as it's a couple minutes past the hour. Thank you to everyone for joining us for our fourth Industrial Initiative webinar. I'm just going to give a quick introduction about Mia and our industrial work, and then I'm going to kick it over to Andre de Fontaine for him to talk about the Better Buildings, Better Plants program. So hopefully you all are familiar with Mia. We're a nonprofit serving 13 different Midwest states. You can see our footprint there. Some of the activities that we are engaged in include education and training, advancing energy efficiency policy, promoting best practices of energy efficiency program and emerging technologies. The core of our work also includes coordinating these efforts with local utility programs in addition to the national programs of EPA and DOE. So that is our web link up there, midwestindustrial.org. And we created this industrial initiative as a resource to connect industrials with local and national energy efficiency information and contacts. So what we're trying to create is a regional network for state, local, and utility efficiency programs and professionals with the end goal of linking industrials with policy and program best practices to make more informed decisions about the advantages of installing energy efficiency technologies and processes. So, this is our, again, this is our dedicated website on the Industrial Initiative. It contains all of the following information: a catalog of regional gas and electric utilities with information on their programs, including live contact information, program overviews, and links. A catalog of industrial case studies, a catalog of industrial best practices, industrial policies by state, as well as a catalog of the US DOE, EPA, and state and local initiatives. And also there is our Twitter up there. We're looking for additional followers, and you can sort of keep up with what we're up to as far as our industrial work goes. Some additional activities we're currently engaged in include outreach to utilities, our member and board to keep apprised of what's happening and what's needed in the marketplace, as well as outreach to actual industrial end users. We act as a resource on the DOE and C-Action working groups, and we're also gearing up for a series of industrial symposiums at end user sites, which should be starting very soon. Just a couple notes on some of the upcoming webinars. We're looking to have Mitsubishi doing a review of their process improvements. The World Resources Institute will be doing one on their paper and pulp report that should be published later this spring, and KW Engineering will be doing a webinar specifically on industrial refrigeration. So you all should be getting emails from us on that as well. Just a couple reminders about today's webinar. You can type your questions into the chat box on the right panel, and then I will queue all of those up, and the question and answer will take place after the presentation is complete. Also, the presentation slides as well as this webinar's recording will be available up on our midwestindustrial.org site /resources/webinars. So with that, I'm going to introduce Andre de Fontaine. He's a project manager at US DOE, and he is going to provide an overview of the Better Buildings, Better Plants program, share some of the benefits of joining and preview some of their upcoming activities. So, Andre?
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much. Let me do the show my screen. So hopefully you are all seeing the beginning of my presentation here.
Yep.
Okay, good. So thank you, Mia, for hosting this webinar, and thanks to everybody on the line for sharing your lunch hour with me. What I'd like to do is give a brief overview of the Better Buildings, Better Plants program, and we typically just call it Better Plants as a shorthand. This is a national leadership initiative focused on energy efficiency in the manufacturing sector. So at the outset, I think it's important to note that Better Plants is one component of a emphasis on manufacturing and energy efficiency that really goes all the way to the top levels of the U.S. government. I think for those of you who were watching the State of the Union in 2012, so this is the one, not the most recent one, but the one prior, President Obama issued a very clear challenge, which is to go out and help manufacturers improve energy efficiency and help them reduce energy waste in their factories, which could lead to lower energy bills of about $100 billion over the next decade, which of course leads to these really great environmental benefits as well as economic competitiveness and more jobs. Of course, in the next State of the Union in 2013, the President reiterated the administration's commitment to energy efficiency, and as I noted, Better Plants is one very important component of trying to drive energy efficiency in the industrial sector. So through Better Plants, we actually have a couple of different ways that manufacturers can participate. One is through the Better Plants program. This is sort of a broader-based initiative which has currently about 120 companies participating, and these companies make long-term energy efficiency targets, and they report their progress to DOE once a year. We've also established a challenge level, and this is essentially a subset of those program partners. There's now 11 of them, and they, in addition to making this long-term energy efficiency goal, make some additional commitments surrounding transparency of their energy performance data, and they also agree to give us a lot of information on showcase projects, which are near-term demonstration projects at individual facilities, as well as their general approach to energy efficiency and the mechanisms that they put in place at the corporate level to overcome some of the persistent barriers to energy efficiency. The basic idea is that we're working with a small number of these challenge partners to really learn from them what they've done to really drive energy efficiency within their organization, and then we take what we've learned and we make it public so that other companies can learn and follow their lead. So a little bit of overview. I'll focus first on the Better Plants program. It's important to note that this is the continuation of a past DOE program. Some of you may have been familiar with the Save Energy Now Leader initiative. Better Plants is sort of the evolution of that program. We kept a lot of the base requirements and infrastructure of that program. So partners set this 10-year, 25% energy intensity improvement target, and we asked them to cover all of their U.S.-based manufacturing operations with that target. 25% over 10 years is a significant goal. We understand that it's ambitious. It's designed to be ambitious, and it's about double the rate of business as usual improvement as projected by the Energy Information Administration. So to suck some of the jargon out of that last sentence, we're basically asking manufacturers to go about twice as fast as they would otherwise be expected to go on energy efficiency. In addition to setting this target, companies also develop energy management plans, and they track and report energy data annually to DOE. And we help them with both of those elements. We help companies develop energy management plans, and also with the energy data, which can be a particularly vexing issue in the industrial sector. We have resources that we're able to provide that can make life a little bit easier for the companies that partner with us. So in addition to that technical assistance, this is a national leadership initiative, so one of the things that we're able to bring to the table is national recognition to the partners for their accomplishments. And a little bit further in the presentation, I'll get into some more detail on what that means exactly. So just a snapshot of our success so far. We do have 118 companies currently participating in the Better Plants program, and this represents over 1,400 plants. So as I mentioned, we ask these companies to bring in all of their manufacturing operations. So we're seeing about 10 or on average 10 or more plants per company. And this equates to about 6%, a little bit more than that, of the total U.S. manufacturing energy footprint. Over the 2 years that we have complete data for, we've seen some pretty encouraging results. So both in 2010 and 2011, the percent improvement rate amongst the partners was better than what we're looking for in the program. So 25% over 10 years. When you annualize that, that's 2.5% per year. And in both 2010 and 2011, we're a little bit above that, which is great. On a cumulative basis, we've racked up some pretty good energy savings numbers, close to 50 trillion BTUs, which is a little bit shy of $250 million total. So we're now in the process of collecting 2012 data. There's always a bit of a lag in terms of the data that we collect from partners, so we do hope to update this table with some new results in the coming weeks. To give a sense of the geographical spread of our partner facilities, this map gives a breakdown of where the plants are located. So if you look, you'll notice that we do have a really strong presence in the Midwest, which makes sense because of all the manufacturing activity that takes place there. The next slide will give a little bit more of a detailed breakdown of what's going on in the Midwest. We do have facilities in every state of the country. Those of you with keen eyes may notice that it looks as though we don't have anything in Vermont. And I just learned the other day that we actually do have an aviation facility from GE that's located in Vermont. So we will need to update this map. So that checks the Vermont box. So now we are totally covered across the country, which is great. So as I mentioned, we do have a lot of activity in the Midwest. So 53 of our partner companies are headquartered in the Midwestern region, which is quite a bit. When you consider that we've got 118 companies total, 53 is close but not quite half, so that's quite a bit for one specific region. Similarly with the facilities, we have 398 plants that are located in one of the Midwestern states, somewhere between 25 and 30%, also very high for an individual region. And I would refer you to the web link that we provide at the last bullet, and that when you access that link, you can actually see the complete list of partners. We've also got a 2-page document that I'm happy to distribute after this webinar that also lists all the partners. We've also done a fair amount of training activities in the Midwest. And that's what's referred to here under the Midwestern INPLTs, or in-plants for short. I will describe these training events in a little bit more detail momentarily, but for now I would just note that we've done about 10 of these in the Midwest, and that's out of a total of about 20. And as you can see, Ohio is pretty well represented, so we've been very active in terms of getting out to some of these plants in the Midwestern states. So to get a little bit more detail on the benefits to partners for signing up to the Better Plants program, as I mentioned, we do provide national recognition. There are web profiles that we develop for participating partners. This allows the company to put information on its accomplishments up on a DOE website. Each year we issue annual recognition letters to companies that qualify for recognition. Those are companies that are on track to meet that 25% target. And we have mechanisms that companies can take advantage of to leverage those letters. Essentially, we allow them to pull a quote and use that, a DOE quote, in press materials and other public materials. We work with partners to invite them to special events. These are sometimes hosted by DOE, but often we work with other organizations that are organizing conferences to get our partners represented there. In terms of the technical assistance benefits, probably the main avenue is through the technical account managers that we assign to companies. So each partner receives a technical account manager who is available to help the company in a number of different ways. We found that the most important thing that the TAM can do is really help the company get its arms around the metrics and establish an accurate energy intensity baseline and figure out a usable system to track improvements over time. This is a topic that's really has a lot of complexity to it in the industrial sector, especially when you're setting a corporate-wide energy efficiency target and you've got to track intensity improvements that are occurring at multiple different plants that might be making different products. So we do have different methodologies and ways of helping companies do that. These TAMs are also available to help companies think through energy-saving opportunities and also introduce them to tools and resources from DOE and other organizations. One of the things that we're trying to be better at, and we've had some success with so far, is to use the TAM sort of as a hub or a spoke who can connect companies to one another. Since the individual TAMs work with several companies at the same time, they can often be a good point of contact and recognize when one company is struggling with an issue that another company may have successfully addressed in the not too distant past. So we're trying to facilitate a lot of those connections. Another way that we actually allow companies to interact with each other is through these in-plant trainings. Now these trainings are 3 to 4 day sessions, and I'll give a little bit more detail in a moment, but the important thing to note is that we send energy experts out to these facilities to train them on specific energy use systems, but we also ask the host facility to invite representatives from multiple other plants, so there is a networking component built into the training. And then, of course, companies get the access to the full suite of DOE tools and resources. These are tools that have been developed over many years. Many of them are now on their second or third generation, and they've been proven to be effective. Obviously, these are open to everybody, so they're on our website. You don't have to be a partner in Better Plants to take advantage of these, though we have found that partners do tend to get a little bit more out of these resources, partially because they are able to work with their account managers to find the tools and resources that are most relevant and useful to them, and also receive some instruction on how to use the tools. For a couple of them are somewhat complex. And here is just an example. I mentioned the web profile a moment ago. This is just to give you a sense of what those actually look like. So we have these completed for most of our partners now up on the DOE website, and it just allows the company to highlight its participation in the program. They can include their logo, some background on the company and what they make, and then also some highlights of their energy efficiency successes, such as cumulative % improvement achieved so far, and then any significant projects or initiatives that have been launched recently. The in-plant trainings, which I've now mentioned a couple of times, have been really popular, and these are something that we launched a couple of years ago. As I mentioned, they last for 3 to 4 days, and we follow, essentially, it's partially an assessment where we do fund an instructor to go out to the plant and perform an energy assessment of a common energy use system. It might be pumps, fans, compressed air, steam, or process heating. But we ask the host plant to bring a bunch of people together, so not just employees at that plant, but representatives from other plants either within the same company or from outside the company. And we've actually found that these are most effective when there are individuals from outside the company that are participating. And these can be either from suppliers or customers or even competitors at times. And all of the participants actually follow the instructor around through the assessment. They learn the basics of this energy use system. They learn how to perform the assessment, how to find opportunities, and how to implement those opportunities. After the field training, there is a 4th day of classroom-based training that's tacked on at the end. And during this classroom-based training, the participants go over the recommendations that were found through the assessment, and they talk about how to actually implement those recommendations, and they also discuss replication, so how to take the learnings from that training and then go out and apply it at the at other plants within the organization. We also discuss issues like establishing energy management systems. And then I should also mention that up front, before the training even takes place, there is actually a pre-training webinar that is delivered to all of the participants in the in-plant training to get everybody up to speed on the energy use system that's going to be evaluated to make sure that there's a common level of knowledge going into the event. So in 2012, we conducted about a dozen of these in-plant trainings, and we trained about 250 participants. So you're seeing that we're getting about 20 people per training event, and through the events, we helped identify over 750 billion BTUs in energy savings and over $4.5 million in cost savings. One additional resource that we provide to partners is a monthly newsletter. And this is designed simply to keep partners up to date on new tools, resources, upcoming webinars, and other success stories from partners. Whenever we have a new partner join up, we include that in the newsletter, or if a partner does something particularly noteworthy, that also goes in the newsletter. And as I mentioned, we do have a lot of online software tools. One that we released recently that we're particularly excited about is the Enhanced Energy Intensity Baselining tool. The proper term is the Energy Performance Indicator tool, and it's actually the version 3.0 now, so we've gone through a couple of iterations already. But this is a really critical tool because it does allow companies to establish energy intensity baselines and then track progress over time. The key feature of this tool is that it is a regression-based tool, so you are able to run regression analyses on plant-level data. And what that allows you to do is basically run your numbers on energy while controlling for factors such as weather, production, and other variables that may be having an impact on your energy use. So through that approach, you are able to get a clearer picture of the actual effects of your energy efficiency efforts because you're controlling for these other factors that might cause your energy usage to go up or down, but that are actually outside of your own individual control. And the other innovation of this tool, what makes it a little bit superior to previous versions, is that you can run these regressions at each plant within your corporation, and then there is a very simple step that allows you then to roll up the plant level metrics to the corporate level, and basically your corporate metric is represented as a % improvement, which is calculated as a weighted average of the % improvement that took place at the plant level. This tool can actually be the subject of its own webinar, and in fact it has been. And we have a tutorial loaded up on our Energy Resource Center, which is available for folks to view. We recorded it, and so if you're looking for more information on this particular tool, I'm happy to answer questions during the Q&A portion, but I'll also send out the link for where you can get more information on the website. So the question that I'm hoping is on the tip of everyone's tongue is how do I sign up? And the answer is that it's very simple. We do have a 2-page partnership agreement form. We ask companies to have this signed by either their CEO or a senior executive. We feel the agreement form is fairly clear in terms of what the partner agrees to do and what DOE agrees to provide. The second page, which is not shown here, does contain some of the classic legal disclaimer language that indicates that it is a voluntary agreement and that you can drop out if you want to without any real consequence. But the front page really contains the meat and the substance of the agreement. Now, most companies don't all just grab the form and sign it right off the bat. Obviously, there's oftentimes a process wherein we talk to companies and answer their questions and go over any concerns they might have. And I'm happy to do that with anybody who is interested. Please contact either myself, and I have my contact information at the end of this presentation, or you can use this generic email address, betterplants@ee.doe.gov, and I will either respond or somebody from our Better Plants team will get in touch with you and walk you through any questions you might have. So that really covers the Better Plants program. As I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, we have this Better Plants Challenge, which represents sort of a higher level and more rigorous level of the partnership. So let me spend a few minutes talking through the Better Plants Challenge and how it fits with the President's overall Better Buildings Challenge. Excuse me. So this was announced actually in December of 2011 by President Obama, and it is the Better Buildings Challenge is the broader umbrella initiative which covers multiple sectors of the economy, including commercial buildings, public institutions, educational institutions, financial institutions, electric utilities, and also the manufacturing sector. The manufacturers, which we call them the Better Plants Challenge partners, that was a very important insight that we received from our colleagues in the manufacturing sector. They didn't want to be referred to as better buildings because it doesn't quite do it justice, the kind of activity that takes place within a manufacturing building. So that's sort of the genesis of the term Better Plants. But these companies actually make the same energy efficiency commitment that's made at the program level. So it's a 10-year, 25% energy efficiency target. What's different, though, is that these companies agree to make their energy data public. So we will publish their performance improvement over time, both on an annual and cumulative basis. And we'll also provide some information on the way energy is consumed at the plant level. We've figured out a system of doing that in a way that we don't feel gives away any kind of competitive information, but still satisfies our desire to give some good transparency on how companies are meeting their targets. We also ask companies to do showcase projects. These are large investments in energy efficiency or breakthrough technologies that are being applied at individual facilities. They're designed to demonstrate to the market what is achievable through energy efficiency technologies and strategies. And then we also ask companies to share what we call their implementation models. And what these are corporate-wide approaches that companies have put in place to overcome one or more barriers to energy efficiency within their corporation. And the extra give that DOE provides for the challenge partners really comes in the form of heightened recognition. So it is a presidential leadership initiative. It was launched by the President, and at the launch date, December 2nd, you can see this photograph. It's both President Obama and former President Clinton. They both attended the launch, which took place at the White House. There was a roundtable discussion held with CEOs of the participating companies and the two presidents, and then afterwards, Obama and Clinton took a tour of a nearby building, the Transwestern building. That's where this photo comes from. So today we have over 100 public, private, and nonprofit organizations participating in the Better Buildings Challenge. This includes 23 commercial partners, 11 Better Buildings, Better Plants partners, 36 community partners, 17 education partners, and then 13 financial allies and 2 utility allies. The allies are a little bit different. They make different kinds of commitments. So the financial allies actually agree to provide a certain amount of capital to the energy efficiency marketplace over a set period of years. The utility allies essentially agree to provide energy efficiency services to the end users within their service territory. And together, these partners and allies represent over 2 billion square feet of commercial and industrial space, over 300 manufacturing plants, and about $2 billion in private sector financing. So here is a slide that contains a lot of logos, and the logos are of the organizations that are partnering through the Better Buildings Challenge. It's a very busy slide. I don't expect you to get too much out of this, but on the next page, this is the listing of the industrial partners that participate in the Better Plants Challenge. So as I mentioned, there's 11 of them, and just to tick through these quickly, J.R. Simplot is a large food and agriculture company. They're probably best known for French fries. They're a large supplier to McDonald's. Schneider Electric produces equipment and goods that go into manufacturing facilities, and they also are an energy efficiency service provider. 3M, of course, I think everybody's familiar with, a good Midwestern-based diversified manufacturer. Alcoa is the largest aluminum company in the world. Briggs & Stratton, also Midwestern. They make engines for outdoor equipment, a lot of lawnmower engines. Johnson Controls, also from Milwaukee. I think a lot of folks sort of think of them as being in the commercial building energy efficiency space, and obviously they're big players there. We're sort of more interested in them as a manufacturer of automotive components, including batteries. General Electric, obviously, huge diversified manufacturer. Nissan car company, U.S. operations based in Tennessee. Cummins makes engines for trucks. And then Saint-Gobain is the world's largest building materials company. And then Legrand makes electrical equipment and components based in Connecticut. I'll just take a moment to discuss something really fun that we did last week, which is we took a tour of Nissan's Showcase project, which is in Smyrna, Tennessee. So this was actually a new paint plant that they recently completed construction on, and it's operational now. The Smyrna plant itself is a auto assembly plant. They make a few different models there. It's a huge auto assembly plant. It's, I believe, the biggest in the U.S. all under one roof. It's 6 million square feet. The auto plant itself is about the paint plant itself is about 250,000 square feet. It was a $200 million investment, and they designed energy efficiency into it, and as a result, the plant is about 30% more efficient than the previous plant. So one of the things that we do, our role through the Better Plants Challenge, is to recognize and go out there and highlight the work of our partners. And so we were able to do this last week when a group of us, led by our Assistant Secretary, Dave Danielson, took a tour of the paint plant and got to see all the great things that they're doing there. This was an event that was open to the media, and we were able to attract a fair amount of coverage, including from some of the local television stations. And here are just some photos. There's Dave Danielson speaking with Mike Klemmer, who's the director of paint and plastics at Nissan. And then there's a shot of a car, which is actually coming out of a phosphate bath, which is a pre-treatment process that immediately precedes the painting, and it's being rinsed before it goes over to the paint operations. Let me just close with a brief mention of the executive order that I'm sure many of you are familiar with, just to indicate how how Better Plants is tied into some of these broader efforts on industrial energy efficiency. So in August of 2012, the President signed an executive order to accelerate investments in industrial energy efficiency, including combined heat and power. And I think sort of the headline provision of that executive order was this goal of 40 gigawatts of new CHP installations over the next decade. We're at about 86 gigawatts today, so 40 new is fairly significant. And then this executive order directed DOE and EPA to work together to convene some regional workshops to talk about the barriers and solutions to adopting greater use of CHP and industrial efficiency more generally. So I've been to a couple of those workshops, and they've been really terrific. They've brought together folks from the electric utilities as well as industrial end users, and then also folks from the regulators, which has been really great. There's also provisions there that asks EPA to provide assistance to states, some best practice guidance. And then something that we're very interested in is that we were directed to expand participation in the Better Plants program and also create additional tools to support partners in their efforts to meet their targets. And with that, I will now open it up to questions if there are any.
Yes, we do have a couple questions for you. We'll start with on the TAMs, the TAMs. Basically, folks want to know who are they? Are they contractors, employees, DOE lab personnel, and also is there a list of them available?
Sure. So let me answer that. They are contractors to DOE, and we contract with two different entities. One is Oak Ridge National Lab, and the other is a firm based outside of DC called Project Performance Corporation. And both of those entities do have staff that are highly trained in industrial energy efficiency. All of them are engineers. They've had a lot of experience working with companies on these very issues, and they're very competent. I should also mention that in addition to PPC and Oak Ridge, we also employ Rutgers University to serve as the TAM for smaller sized manufacturers. That ends up being a pretty good fit because Rutgers also operates the Industrial Assessment Centers. That's a program that DOE funds, and these are university-based centers that go out and do energy audits for small to medium-sized manufacturing plants. So they've built up a lot of expertise for those smaller-sized facilities, and they're able to bring that to bear when they work with some of our smaller partners through the Better Plants program. What I don't have that I'm able to distribute is a listing of the individual TAMs. There are about 14 total that service the full 118 companies. The other thing that I would mention is the way that we structure the relationship between the TAMs and the companies is that we design it so the bulk of the assistance and the bulk of the interaction takes place within the first 12 to 24 months of the partner's participation in the program. It doesn't fall off the cliff, but the idea is that we want to work pretty closely with the company to establish the basics of their energy management program in that first year to 2 year period, and then maintain a steady relationship with them going forward. But it's a 10-year program, and so we need to be mindful of the resource issues of maintaining very, very heavy contact for the full 10 years. So we try to put the company on a sustainable path to good energy management in those first couple of years.
Great. Just a couple of reminders. The webinar recording, again, will be posted at midwestindustrial.org/resources/webinars, and you all can continue to route your questions through the question box on the right. So next question is, how does Better Plants coordinate its efforts with utility efficiency programming?
You know, that's a really good question, and something that we want to do a better job of doing, and we've not been super well coordinated with the utility programs to date. We do have, and this is more sort of at the account manager level, where many of the TAMs do have relationships with utility representatives in certain areas of the country, and they are able to direct companies to incentives being offered by those utilities. But to be honest, we don't have a really coordinated strategy at the headquarters level working with utilities through Better Plants right now. But that's something that we're actually in the process of developing and strengthening.
Okay. Is there any benchmarking with other peers in similar manufacturing operations as part of the assessment?
We do. So as part of the, let me answer that in a couple of different ways. So generally, yes, we do sort of informal benchmarking, company to company. These are relationships that the account managers are able to facilitate, and when we talk about benchmarking here, it's sort of more of a process and practice benchmarking. So it's looking across, okay, what is company X doing, or company X and Y are using 2-year paybacks. It's less about the direct energy efficiency performance benchmarking that EPA does, for example, through its plant level energy performance indicators. Which are great, and I'd encourage all the companies online to explore those if they haven't already done so. And then through, I think you mentioned the assessments, so that might be referring to the in-plant trainings that we conduct. There, what you do see is really great exchanges of ideas and practices that take place in this, organized but informal setting that occurs through the in-plant training. A lot of back and forth as you get folks from different companies together, not just in the same room, but actually touring a facility that are able to stop and discuss how they've been able to approach energy efficiency on a particular process or piece of equipment. So that's a form of benchmarking that we facilitate.
Okay. So speaking of the in-plant trainings, are there opportunities for non-plant organizations to be involved? With the implants, specifically, this organization is looking to work with manufacturers directly in states where no current implants exist.
Okay, did you ask, can nonprofits get involved? Was that the question?
Non-plant organizations.
Non-plant organizations. So we've done, we have invited utility representatives to attend in-plant trainings. We've also had folks from state energy offices come by, and we have in certain, I'm not sure if we've done this yet, but there's no reason why we couldn't, is have representatives from regional non-governmental organizations attend as well. We'd obviously have to understand sort of the nature and the role that the organization is bringing. We're looking to try to add value to the event. So the reason why we've invited state and utility officers is because we want to make sure the company participating in the training is aware of any resources that those organizations are able to provide, and also just strengthen the relationship between the end user and those entities. And also we've had in certain cases vendors come at the request of the host organization.
Okay. Does DOE offer any currently offer any financial assistance to conduct energy assessments?
What we do is through the industrial assessment centers, which I mentioned a moment ago. These are these university-based centers that go out and perform one-day energy audits at small to medium-sized manufacturing facilities. These teams are led by engineering professors but staffed by students, and they've been around for many, many years. They've been highly effective and have discovered, a huge amount of savings within individual plants. So that is a resource that is free and out there for manufacturers to take advantage of. And so I'd encourage you to go to the DOE website, and this is a link that we can send around afterwards, and you can actually, there's a pretty well-established application process for getting in contact with these centers and trying to schedule an assessment. And then from there, the in-plant trainings do contain this assessment component. Those are free to partners in the Better Plants program, though we also have an application process. We're not always able to accommodate every single applicant, but we have been able to do quite a few each year.
Okay, and so that sort of builds on this question about how smaller manufacturers can participate in the program given the fact that they tend to have fewer staff and resources to take on new initiatives. You want to elaborate on that?
Yeah. I get that question a lot, and I think that if you take a look at our partnership list, you'll see that there are actually a fairly significant number of smaller manufacturers. I think the eye tends to gravitate towards those really big companies like the Dow Chemicals or the Alcoas and the Nissans, but we do have a lot of companies that operate one or two plants that are sort of in that $250 to $500 million in revenue range. And we feel that we can be very helpful to those companies. In terms of the challenges to implementing energy efficiency within a manufacturing organization, the small guys are just like the big guys, only probably more so, in the sense that they don't have the staff or the resources to implement projects. But at the same time, these are the types of organizations that can make really rapid improvements at relatively low cost, especially if they've never really taken a hard look at energy efficiency before. So we think that through the program, what we can provide is sort of an organizational structure, a long-term target, an account manager that can help the company do some of this work, including thinking through metrics and establishing energy baselines, potentially taking advantage of an energy audit through the IAC program, and then providing the recognition that can help propel the organization forward. So it is, I would encourage small companies to take a hard look at the program, because I do think that there are a number of benefits to them for joining up.
So I'm curious, what would you say is the biggest reason that these manufacturers cite for participation in the Better Plants program? I know you mentioned the recognition and the technical assistance and trainings, but what do they say is sort of the biggest draw for them?
Yeah, you know, that is a good question, and it is both of those things, and often you'll hear different manufacturers emphasize different aspects of the benefits, sort of depending on where they are when they come to us. We've had some companies say that you know, just they would have never signed up for this type of target had it not been for DOE's assistance, that they wouldn't have been able to convince their management to set a long-term ambitious energy efficiency target without the promise of some DOE help. So there are companies that really do value the assistance that the technical account managers are able to provide, especially for companies that have struggled in the past with establishing appropriate metrics to track energy intensity. I've had a couple of companies tell me that, you know, they never had a good and accurate way of tracking energy efficiency improvement until they joined Better Plants and were able to work with their account manager to come up with the appropriate methodology. There are other companies that come in and they're already at a relatively sophisticated state in terms of their energy management program. And of course, there's always more that you can do, and we think that we're always able to provide some help to those companies, even those that are sort of at the top of the pyramid. But for those companies, the national recognition then ends up being a more important driver for joining up, where they do like to differentiate themselves from their peers in the marketplace. And this government endorsement of their energy efficiency efforts is something that's important to them.
Okay. Are companies required to sign up for the 10 years? And is it some type of contract?
Are they, you faded out a little bit at the end, are they required to sign a contract? Was that the question?
Yeah, and if there, you know, if there's a way to participate for less than the 10-year goal, I suppose.
I see. Yeah, yeah. Right now, so we don't call it a contract. It really is. It's an agreement form. I try not to load it up with that kind of language, and I'm happy to distribute the form out after this webinar, and you can read through the legal disclaimer language that makes things fairly clear that this is a voluntary partnership initiative. As far as the length of time of the commitment, you know, right now it is a standard 10-year energy efficiency target. We've not done shorter-term goals yet, but I will caveat that by saying we do allow companies to set a baseline year as far back as 3 years from the date that they joined up. So that means that if you joined today, you could set a baseline of 2010, which would take your participation out to 2020. The reason why we do that is we want to give some flexibility in case companies recently implemented some really big projects in 2011 and 2012 that they want to be able to take credit for, or sometimes you know, 2013 and 2012 might have been an anomalous year and they want to go back a couple of years to pick a year that's a little bit more standard and what they might expect to see from their operations in the future, or because it lines up better with some existing corporate sustainability targets.
Okay, and that sort of goes along with this question on what happens to manufacturers if they are not meeting their targets?
You know, our role is really to recognize, congratulate, and encourage companies to move forward. And so when companies meet their targets, they get certificates and recognition from DOE. When they, at the end of the year, if they are on track to meet their target, and we measure that in a couple of different ways, you know, whether you're on track on a cumulative basis or if you had a particularly good individual year, you get a letter from DOE. You know, everybody is recognized in terms of being listed on the DOE webpage, and they get a kit when they first sign up to trumpet their joining. There are no negative, if you fall off pace, you do not get any kind of critical letters or critical attention from DOE. You just don't get as much of the recognition as you otherwise would have gotten had you stayed on track. So we don't run around telling folks company X and Y are on the laggard list. We don't really see a lot of positive things that come out of that. So it's really more, the absence of positive recognition is the only consequence of falling off your target. Where we do draw the line, though, actually, is the base requirement is that the company reports once a year to us. And if you fall off the reporting cycle, if you stop sending us progress reports, at that point we would have a conversation with the company about whether or not it wants to continue to participate in the program. But again, even there, it would be, if the company chooses to withdraw, it's all done very quietly without any consequences.
Okay. This is a question about the IACs, or rather, since they're geared towards smaller manufacturing companies, are there resources available for larger manufacturing companies in terms of consultant services?
Yeah. So a couple of different answers to that. One is that you actually will see large companies take advantage of the IACs. The distinction here is that the IACs go out and target small to medium-sized facilities. So you might have, and I've seen this actually several times, large companies, 3Ms or Pepsis of the world, that send IACs out to some of their smaller-sized facilities. So that's probably not exactly the answer that the questioner is looking for. But the other way that we do that is again, through these in-plant trainings, where some of our large companies have now done one or two of them. And these do, as I mentioned, contain an assessment component. So an expert will go out and look at a specific energy use system and make recommendations for improvements in energy efficiency to that system. But it's more than just an assessment in that it really does focus a lot on training not just the individuals from that host plant, but individuals from other plants as well.
Okay. Can the public access the energy intensity baseline tool?
Yes. And I apologize for not having a web link available here, but that's something that I will send around. If I will make a little list, and then Chelsea, maybe I can coordinate with you to distribute that out to all the participants after this webinar.
Yep, we'll make sure to get all of those items out to all of the participants after the webinar. So could you talk about some of the more frequent barriers to implementing energy efficiency recommendations that participant companies have overcome?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think the most common barriers are lack of resources to implement projects, and that can fall under two basic categories. One is financial, so being able to come up with the capital to fund projects, and then also lack of human resources, so just having the appropriate trained individuals that have the time on their hands to really devote to energy efficiency. I think those really, if you look through the literature on this topic, you'll find a lot of different organizations have sliced up the barriers in different ways. But I do think you can kind of group them all under sort of a kind of a prioritization issue where companies are out there to make a product, to make a profit, to make money. Energy efficiency is an important cost-cutting tool, but it often falls by the wayside as companies are trying to increase output or meet their financial targets. So, and that ends up manifesting itself through these lack of resources for energy efficiency projects. So some of the things that companies have done, and this is a great question because this is actually what we're trying to explore through the implementation models that we're developing through the Better Plants Challenge. So for example, and this is up on our website, the implementation model that was submitted by 3M is a capital set-aside program. A few other companies have done this, but essentially every year they reserve $1 million to invest only in energy efficiency projects and in projects that fail to meet the standard hurdle rates that they apply for other capital investment projects. So this is designed to target those projects that fall sort of within that 2 to 4 year payback period. So still profitable, still cost effective, but just a little bit outside of what they would otherwise fund through their normal budgeting process. Another good example is an implementation model that's being put forward by Alcoa. And here what they've done is they've actually linked the variable pay for leadership within Alcoa to the achievement of energy efficiency targets. So this is a great way of actually ensuring a certain level of engagement from senior management on energy efficiency if you actually compensate them financially on the basis of their performance against energy efficiency targets. So those are a couple of ideas. I mean, there's other things that we're developing. For example, Legrand, their implementation model is designed around it's employee engagement, but it's tied in with a sub-metering initiative that they've rolled out at all of their facilities in the U.S., and it's designed to collect really detailed data on energy use and then distribute that data to all their employees to try to drive greater awareness of energy usage and get everybody managing energy, making that part of everybody's job, just not just the energy manager.
Okay. So are the reported savings and energy reductions that the plants submit verified by DOE at any point?
There is, we do a great deal of effort goes into working with the companies to ensure the data is as accurate as possible. Verification, we don't go out on site and do the kind of M&V that some utility programs might be doing when they go out and issue incentives for specific projects. So there is, the data is self-reported, but we work very closely with the companies, and this takes place through our account managers that review a lot of the plant level data and make sure that the numbers are all lining up. We did do an exercise a couple of years ago where we did an additional verification step. We had to submit a report to Congress on the progress of the program, and they asked us to verify a sample of the data. And we went out to a sample of companies, and we actually asked them to share with us their raw energy bills. And then we compared that with what was reported to DOE. And in all but one case, the numbers lined up, and the one time there was a discrepancy, it was due to an error on the part of the company. It was a unit conversion error. So we're fairly confident in the numbers. There are limits to the depth of the verification that we can perform just from a resource standpoint.
Okay. And we just have a couple more questions. I know we're running out of time here. So is there a cost for companies to participate in the program?
There is no cost. There is only the time that we ask of the company. There does need to be some interaction with DOE and the account manager to complete the reports and fully participate. But our view is that the benefits that you end up getting through energy savings will greatly outweigh those costs. But certainly there's no actual money that gets exchanged between the company and DOE.
Okay, and then I think this will be our last question. I know that you mentioned briefly at the end about last August White House executive order. Could you talk a little bit more about how Better Buildings, Better Plants is specifically coordinated with that, especially regarding CHP?
Mm-hmm. We we were, as part of the executive order, there is this directive to expand the Better Plants program. And so we've been busy doing that. And then, of course, within AMO, there's a great emphasis on combined heat and power. Excuse me. And so one of the things that we've been doing is making sure that our partners are aware of these efforts taking place. So through the newsletter, for example, we're able to publicize the regional dialogues that have taken place so far throughout the country on CHP and industrial energy efficiency. We are also really eager for companies within the partnership that have implemented successful CHP projects. We're very eager to learn from them and publicize case studies on what they were able to do. And also, in certain instances, we've been recommending speakers from Better Plants program partners at other events, including these regional dialogues that focus on CHP.
Okay, great. So that was very good, very informative, and I would like to thank Andre for participating today, and as we mentioned earlier, we'll make sure to get out all of the items that we have discussed today to all of the participants. Again, the webinar recording will be available on midwestindustrial.org/resources/webinars. And feel free to reach out to me, Chelsea Lamar, if you have any additional questions, or reach out to Andre directly. So thanks everyone for participating.
Thank you.